had absolutely no idea how many inaugural events would pop up on Eventbrite, and it was unbelievable the amount of traction we had in January of 2009, because the country came together to sort of celebrate this event, and a lot of these events were popping up on Eventbrite. And so we feel, that was like this awesome sort of really lucky break, rocket fuel that kind of propelled us into 2009, and then we saw this like reverberation effect, which we call like the Obama effect, that we saw throughout the rest of the year. But as we were growing and gaining traction, we had this great extra boost from January that we couldn't have ever expected or planned for, really. So at the end of 2009, we went back. We had gone to the VC community like a year before that, just to have sort of talks about the health of the business, and had gotten some great feedback, and really had come up with a list of things that we wanted to do in 2009 that we thought we could achieve and we could really push ourselves. And in September 2009, we decided to go out and raise a real VC round. And it was incredible. We hadn't raised our heads up. We hadn't like looked around to tell our story in a very long time. And what we realized was that we actually had a story, but more importantly, we had done what we said we were going to do. And I didn't ever think that would really matter to VCs, and we kept hearing time and every great meeting that we had, of course we didn't have all great meetings, but every great meeting that we had, they would come back to us with, "We're really impressed that you said you were going to do this a year ago, and you've done X, Y, and Z," which is basically hit the metrics that we said we were going to hit. And that accounted for a lot. And in the time of last fall, I mean, fundraising was not, it was sort of an interesting time to go fundraise. It was just getting better, but it was nowhere near the health that it's at right now. It's incredible how things change so quickly. So we were really, really lucky and excited to pair up with Sequoia Capital again and bring Roelof Botha on board, who was best known as the original investor in YouTube. And so we kind of set ourselves up, and we went out with this goal, and we achieved the goal. And that's probably one of the proudest moments I've had at Eventbrite, just because it seems so daunting at the outset. Along the way, we met Sean Moriarty. So he was he's an entrepreneur in residence at Mayfield, actually, and they kind of set him up with us to vet us, and we just totally hit it off. He's an amazing operator, but he also happens to be the former CEO of Ticketmaster, which is actually less important than the person he is in the execution that he helps us deliver. And he joined our board in January of 2010. So all in total, we closed 2009 with $100 million in ticket sales. So that's the ticket sales that we help our organizers, earn through selling tickets on Eventbrite. And we've seen almost about 41 million actually in ticket sales in the first quarter of 2010. I have our money lady over here, Darlene, who's can correct me if I'm wrong. So right now we're at 50 employees, and we're actually close to break even. And I'd say that to us is important. It's obviously we're in growth and scale mode, so it's not the most important thing for us to get profitable right now. In fact, our investors would probably rather us not get profitable and actually dig in and to grow, to really kind of make that hockey stick a little bit steeper. But we feel like we've been running a really responsible business, and I think that's what made us kind of go through the economic downturn without really even feeling any effect. So kind of how did we get here in the first place? I want to kind of step back and talk about, if you're going to leave a big plush corporate job, or maybe not so plush, and you're going to jump in here, like, what do you need to think about in a macro sense of starting a business and starting a startup? And so first you need to think about the characteristics of your environment. So I'm kind of speaking now like the startup as an organism. And you need to have access to nutrients. You need to have minimal predators or strong defenses. You need to know that extreme seasonality is inevitable. And I'm going to use some case studies here. PayPal, because we're very much big fans of PayPal, and we have some good knowledge of their early days. Netflix, same thing, very big fans, especially with Barry McCarthy over there. Bebo, because we know the story really well. Their founders are actually advisors and investors. Not so much because the company is doing real well right now, but kind of sort of how it began to the acquisition of Bebo by AOL. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Eventbrite and then also a little bit about YouTube. So first is access to nutrients. So PayPal had this really interesting story. They started out totally unrelated to what they do now, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But they, when looking for customers for online payments, they couldn't ever really predict that a group of power sellers on eBay would add the PayPal, Pay by PayPal button. And this happened organically. And this happens a lot when you're starting a startup. Things happen that surprise you. And I think that my thought here is that you always have to be open for the unexpected and be ready to capitalize on it. So for Eventbrite, it was that we started to see Facebook become one of the top drivers of traffic to our site back in 2008. And we were sort of curious, and so when we took a deeper look, we found that people were taking their Eventbrite details and republishing it in Facebook and putting a link back to Eventbrite. And that link to buy tickets was driving our traffic. Now, our thesis was that SEO and organic search would send the most traffic to Eventbrite. Well, we didn't really think about what social media meant and social networks meant for events. We were kind of too busy building our product. But when we saw that, we jumped on it and we capitalized. And what we did was we became one of the first Facebook Connect partners to integrate. We created this one button step to republishing your event details from Eventbrite to Facebook. And now Facebook is the #2 traffic source to our site. We had 4.5 million unique visitors in March, and so Google SEO is #1, but Facebook's #2, and not by a very wide margin. We actually think that Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn are certainly going to surpass sort of as an aggregate. I think they're already even to what we bring in from organic search, but Facebook's #2, Twitter's #3, and LinkedIn's #5. So the power of the social network was something that we saw sort of on the horizon but hadn't prepared for, and we just sort of jumped on it. So that's exactly what PayPal did. They started equipping eBay buyers or eBay sellers with their pay by PayPal buttons, and you kind of know how that story ends. eBay took notice and acquired them. So that was really their access to customers. Access to capital, and I put an asterisk here, preferably optional, is because you need to decide where you're going to get the money, right? Either you're going to become wildly profitable right off the bat. In the case of Eventbrite, we weren't wildly profitable, but we had a solid business model. And our business model is we take a transaction fee of the ticket price. So we take 2.5% plus 99 cents. And although we sort of iterated, we started out with like a free service, then we went to a freemium service, and then we went to a paid service, and that was a whole process I could tell you about later. But we really had the idea of how we would monetize in the very beginning, and we felt that was quite important for the health of our business. And then also you want access to talent, and you guys have, I mean, you're stoked. You have a great network and a plethora of talent, and you want to draw on that. And so you want to be looking always at, who you're sitting next to in class and who do they know. And, I think it's a big cliche because it's like you got a network, but you really were always thinking about, at this stage in our company, we're thinking a lot about hiring. And hiring is becoming even more of a challenge this year than it was last year, for sure. And what we try to impart on our employees is to always be thinking about who you want sitting next to you. And always be thinking outside the box. Maybe we don't have a position open now that this friend of yours or this colleague or ex-colleague of yours could be great for, but let's think about how we can engage them now and really always have your recruiting cap on. So you just always want to be thinking about who you could be partnering up with, and take a chance. I mean, we took a huge chance to be partnering with each other as partners and then also to be partnering with somebody who was based in Paris. We had no idea if that would work.